So you outlined in there that this question of balance has become really important. Do you think that essentially what we're talking about here is justice? And do the talks here, are they taking this into account? Is justice kind of given enough space to be an issue here?
I think you're right. I mean, the public and the NGOs, we know it as justice. And to the diplomats, maybe justice is a very strong word, so they use the word balance. So what we are actually looking for here is a fair agreement in which there is a balance. But of course, balance and fairness has different interpretations depending on where you come from. And from the point of view of the developing countries, the most important imbalance at the moment is the very astonishing development that the developed countries who have been in the Kyoto Protocol with a legally binding regime that is based on what we have to do is being dismantled, and that there is no very strong commitment left among the developed countries that are in the Kyoto Protocol to continue with a second commitment period. And this has become the major issue where the developing countries are concerned.
So you mentioned that there's this, the potential of the talks stalling as rich countries wait for the United States to move, or as there becomes this kind of the negotiations grind to a halt as people demand action in the Kyoto Protocol track or in the long-term cooperative action track. How are we going to encourage countries to take leadership and to push on ahead despite other countries or other parts of the negotiations slowing down?
I think the key lies with Europe, because Europe has for many years been the leader in actually taking their own emission reduction actions. Europe has been in the Kyoto Protocol, and Europe has its own system where they have committed themselves in their own internal system to cutting by 20% or 30% if others join in. And then they have their own system of monitoring and compliance within the EU system itself. So if the EU has already committed to 20%, whatever anybody does, and there are very strong leaders in Europe that came out with a letter in Financial Times that we should actually go for 30%, then there is no problem for the EU to commit itself internationally through the continuation of the Kyoto Protocol. And the EU, if it does so, and pulls along Japan and Russia and a few others, we can see the continuation of the Kyoto Protocol in the second period in a credible manner. And they should do it whether or not the United States joins in the Kyoto Protocol, because for the last many years, they have been doing it without the United States. And of course, all of us hope that the United States would also join the Kyoto Protocol and make it complete with all the developed countries inside. Now we have a situation in which the US will not be able to join the Kyoto Protocol, and we are not even sure the extent to which it can make a firm commitment, even nationally, let alone internationally. So we have a very big decision to make. Shall we continue on our journey without the United States, and at the same time expecting that at least this administration will do the best that it can with or without congressional support? And I think we should just carry on and not say that, well, if the US doesn't want to commit even nationally in a very firm way, then we all dismantle our great efforts and our commitment. And then that will lead to the unraveling of the whole system. And why this is especially bad is that it will send the wrong signal to the developing countries. It took a very long time for the developing countries to come on board. For a long time, many developing countries did not believe that climate change was really a serious problem. And in the last 3 to 4 years, they have. They are now very committed to gearing themselves up to action because they have been persuaded, number one, by the political leaders of the developed countries, particularly Europe. And secondly, because of the development of the science in the IPCC. So now all developing countries are considering what kind of climate action plans they should take, and they are looking forward to receiving financial and technological support from the international system to strengthen what they can do nationally. And they are gearing themselves up. And when they are gearing themselves up, they see the leaders falling behind. And this is sending the wrong signal to them. This may turn the clock backwards for the developing countries. And we don't want that to happen.
Just finally then, you've been talking about signals to developing countries, and it seems one of the big issues here is trust, and how we can build trust between developing and developed countries in these talks. What's the way forward here?
I think there are these ways. The developed countries that are already geared up to do action should pledge their actions in an international system that is legally binding. The best way to do it is to continue the Kyoto Protocol. Without the continuation of the Kyoto Protocol, there can be very little trust. And I think that is the most important. The second most important, of course, is to really make up your mind and the political will to give serious financial support to developing countries that is new and additional, that does not take away from the budget from AIDS or health or malaria or education, and transfer it to climate change. That would be the worst thing to do. New and additional serious financing through a UNFCCC fund. That would send a very strong signal to the developing countries with a credible quantum. There's no point setting up a new fund with no money. Okay, with a credible, quantum and an independent fund within the UNFCCC system. And the third is a serious program on technology transfer, which we have not seen so far. Now, if these three things are done, not only will there be confidence in the system, there will be a lot of action in the system.
Martin, thank you very much for joining us.
Sorry, my voice is going.